In a world where goblins are often ignored and seen as mere nuisances, one particular goblin is about to embark on an extraordinary journey. Born into a life where he is expected to be crushed by heroes and monsters alike, our protagonist starts off as a weak and insignificant creature. But when fate offers him a rare chance, he grabs it with all his might. Watch as he transforms from an unknown goblin into a powerful leader. He taps into ancient powers, forms risky alliances, and builds a mighty empire from scratch. His journey is filled with danger and betrayal, yet with every obstacle, he becomes more powerful and clever. This story isn't just about a goblin's rise, it's about the making of a legend. Get ready for an epic adventure full of change, ambition, and ultimate victory in From Goblin to Goblin God. A goblin yelled, "The chief is dead," and grabbed the chief's weapon, declaring he was now the new chief. Another goblin immediately showed up and argued that he should be the chief instead. They started fighting while the other goblins watched. Suddenly, one goblin remembered that the chief had left some prey behind and suggested they go get it. They were about to leave when another goblin said the guard for the prey was returning. Lin Tian, the guard, arrived, and the goblins made fun of him for looking too human. The goblins decided to follow Lin Tian to make sure he didn't keep the prey. But then, another goblin said they should wait because some other goblins had already gone to find the prey. Lin Tian heard the goblins and rushed back to where he had left the prey. When he got closer, he heard the prey, a young girl, crying and saying she didn't want to have goblin children. Lin Tian arrived to see goblins surrounding her and shouted at them to stop. The leader of the goblins told Lin Tian that since the chief was dead, he now owned the prey. The goblins launched a fierce attack on Tian, injuring him with their brutal assault. Tian, feeling overwhelmed and desperate, managed to pull out a stone knife he had kept hidden. With a swift and determined strike, he killed one of the goblins. The sight of the goblin falling and the glint of the knife in Tian's hand terrified the remaining goblins. They quickly retreated, fleeing from the scene and leaving Tian alone with the girl he had been protecting. The girl, deeply grateful, thanked Tian repeatedly for saving her once more. She noted that Tian was different from the other goblins. While the others had harmed her and shown no regard for her safety, Tian had consistently protected her and refrained from causing her any harm. She recognized his unique behavior and expressed her appreciation for his bravery and kindness. Tian reasons that he was once a human being who had been transported to this strange world after being struck by a dump truck in his previous life. His new existence as a goblin came with a system that wasn't fully functional yet. This system only displayed some basic stats and information, but it was enough for Tian to understand more about this world from the girl's explanations. According to what he had learned, the world was created by powerful gods and was teeming with formidable monsters. Humans, having been pushed to the brink, had fought fiercely to carve out a place for themselves using their strength and resilience. This world was a constant battleground, with survival depending on the ability to fight and adapt. As a goblin, Tian was unfortunately the weakest and most pitiful of monsters. His stats were very low compared to other goblins, making him particularly vulnerable and easy to kill. Furthermore, he discovered that goblins became stronger through mating. However, due to the lack of female goblins, they engaged in mating with other female creatures. This behavior often led to their constant raiding and plundering. Tian, with his human sensibilities, found this practice abhorrent and unacceptable. Seeing the troubled expression on Tian's face, the girl approached him with a comforting presence. She understood that he was different from the typical goblin and recognized that he didn't want to live among the other goblins. She reassured him that once the knights came to rescue her, she would make sure to tell them about Tian's heroism. The knights were known for their fairness and justice, so she was confident they would appreciate Tian's bravery and would likely offer him a place in their village, allowing him to live a better life away from the goblins and their ways. Tian realizes the girl is right. Even though his system is off, he decides to wait for the humans to rescue them. Once they're safe, he plans to focus on surviving and figuring out how to turn his system back on. When he hears a goblin coming, Tian tells the girl to hide. The goblin arrives, shouting that a human is nearby and wants to mate to gain strength. Tian quickly kills the goblin with his knife and tells the girl that it seems like help is on the way. As they move towards the exit, a man appears and defeats several goblins. Tian is amazed by the man's impressive abilities. The girl recognizes the man as Loader and runs toward him, but Loader tries to strike her with his sword. Tian reacts quickly, pushing her out of the way. He wonders why Loader is attacking the girl he's supposed to rescue and thinks that maybe the darkness of the cave caused a mistake. Loader accuses the girl, Kelia, of being a disgrace for dodging his attack and claims she must be punished for being tainted by goblins and possibly carrying a goblin spawn. He says it's absurd to expect mercy from someone so filthy and demands that she repent to the Great Holy Mother. Kelia protests, saying she wasn't defiled by the goblins and that Tian protected her. Loader dismisses her protest, accusing her of lying and saying she should at least make her lie believable. Furious, Tian tells Kelia to run to the exit and gets ready to confront Loader. Just then, a woman enters and tells Loader to stop. The lady protects Tian with a magic circle, remarking that he seems unusual. Kelia kneels before her, calling her Holy Maiden and pleading for her help. The Holy Maiden assists Kelia to her feet and hands her over to Loader. She then asks Tian if he understands her. Tian deduces that she must be Holy Maiden Ephraia, the spokesperson of the temple Kelia mentioned, and realizes she might be his best chance of escaping the cave. Tian confirms that he understands her and explains that he is not a native monster, but a former human transformed by an accident. He offers to explain everything if he can accompany them. Loader tells Ephraia that Tian appears more intelligent than the typical goblins. Ephraia smiles, noting that goblins are usually simple-minded and not capable of such fluent speech and thought. She speculates that Tian might be a gift from the Holy Mother. She then asks Kelia if Tian really did not harm her. Kelia confirms that Tian not only refrained from hurting her, but also protected her from other goblins and provided her with food. Convinced, Ephraia agrees to take Tian with them for further examination before making a decision. She asks Tian if he is willing to go, and he eagerly agrees, relieved to find someone who will listen to reason. Seeing no other option and facing death if he stays, he is determined to go with them and clear his name. As they prepare to leave, Tian thanks Ephraia, promising to repay her properly. However, in a shocking turn of events, Loader suddenly stabs Kelia. With a sinister smile, Ephraia warns Tian that he had better repay her well once they return. A week later, in Bright Town, Ephraia and Loader address the townspeople, discussing the devastating impact of the recent goblin raid. Loader describes how the goblins executed vile sneak attacks, resulting in the deaths of 30 town residents, which incites anger among the people who seek revenge. He then announces that the Holy Order, representing the temple, has eradicated the goblins and avenged the fallen villagers. Ephraia urges the townspeople to continue their fervent prayers to the temple, promising that it will always safeguard its devoted followers. The crowd praises the knights and the temple before dispersing. Later that day, Ephraia is in a library reading a scroll. She thinks about how successful her sermon was, noting that the townspeople are just as gullible as ever. They will pray even more and give more tributes to the temple. Meanwhile, Tian is chained to a wall and looks badly beaten from torture. He calls out Ephraya's name. She notices his surprising strength and wonders if this resilience is why the temple has had trouble getting rid of goblins on the continent. As she approaches him, she shows curiosity about how poison affects goblins. Tian, furious, accuses her of being deceitful, tricking him, tricking everyone, and murdering Kelia. He questions whether this is the justice of her holy order, and if this is what she calls fairness. Ephraia shoves a stick into his mouth, ignoring his accusations and commenting on the nerve of a weak and worthless creature like him questioning human justice. She claims that Kelia, who had defended him, was bewitched and betrayed humanity and the Holy Order, so her death was a sign of her final loyalty. Ephraia declares that goblins are just pests on the continent and says that talking to him is a great privilege. She insists that he should be grateful and allow his body to be used for human and Holy Order experiments. Using her magic on him, Tian thinks about his fate. He realizes that since being brought to the human village, Loader and Ephraia have tortured and manipulated him in every way possible, never believing a word he said. He vows that if he gets another chance, he will never trust humans again and promises to exact revenge on them. swearing to grind their bones and drain their blood. Tian finds himself in a strange place and looks around in confusion. A board appears and tells him that he is dead because of his own mistakes. It explains that he forgot he was a goblin and that humans will never trust or pity goblins. The board says he died after going through intense torture and suffering, with that pain now forever in his soul. The board then asks if he wants to start a new life. Tian realizes that this board is actually his personal system, which only works after death. It offers him a chance to come back to life, but as a goblin, which is considered the lowest type of creature. He asks what will happen if he chooses yes or no. The system explains that if he chooses no, his soul will completely vanish and he will cease to exist. If he chooses yes, he will keep his memories and the system, and he will be sent back to the Goblin Cave 1 week before his death. Excited by the chance for revenge, Tian chooses yes. He is then transported back to the Goblin Cave. The system notes that to help him survive, he has been given a small enhancement. Tian arrives in the Goblin Cave and is warned by the system that despite his rebirth, the threat remains imminent as the human holy order is approaching. If he dies again, the system will be unable to revive him. He asks for guidance, and the system explains that it is the Goblin Life Simulation System, which allows him to simulate his life to predict future events. Every choice he makes will lead to different outcomes, and each simulation lasts 24 hours, after which he earns points that can be exchanged for items. Tian instructs the system to begin the simulation, which presents him with his current predicament, escaping the Goblin Cave. He has 3 options: warn the other goblins and unite to confront Loader and his men, earning 10 points, abandon the other goblins and escape alone, earning 5 points, or hide in the cave and hope Loader and his men don't find him, earning 0 points. Tian concludes that uniting with the goblins won't be enough to defeat Loader, so he chooses the first option, hoping that the highest point reward might allow him to acquire a weapon and potentially defeat them through a surprise attack. The system then reports that Tian led the goblins into a desperate battle against Holy Knight Loader, resulting in their slaughter. It advises him to assess his strengths more carefully before making decisions, and Tian receives the 10 points. Tian asks the system to open the exchange shop, but he finds that he doesn't have enough points to buy most of the weapons. He sees a dagger priced at 10 points and decides to buy it. This gives him a small boost in strength and speed. Next, he asks about Kelia and learns that, because of changes in the timeline due to his rebirth, Kelia was never captured by the goblins and is now living happily in the village. Tian is relieved to know he kept his promise to her, so he focuses on escaping and surviving. He chooses to go through the narrowest passage, thinking that the guards at the smaller entrance outside will be weaker. Outside, he overhears 2 guards talking about how much they dislike goblins. One guard says that anyone trying to escape through the small entrance will be crushed with his hammer. The other guard mentions that Loader ordered them to kill any girl who tries to flee in the chaos. Tian, angry about this, decides to confront the guards. He disguises his voice to sound like a woman and calls for help to trick the guards. They hear the call and assume it's a girl, so they tell her to come out. Tian stays hidden while one guard approaches the cave, hiding a knife behind his back. As the guard gets closer to Tian's hiding spot, Tian gets ready to strike. Tian stabs the guard as he gets close, but the second guard, who hasn't seen what happened, wonders why his friend is taking so long. Tian quickly moves the dead guard aside and slashes at the second guard, knocking him to the ground. The fallen guard, shocked to see a goblin who can speak like a human, begs for his life. He shows Tian a picture of his family and talks about his daughter, saying they are waiting for him to come back. He claims he's just following orders from the Holy Order and didn't have a choice. As Tian thinks about what the guard said, the guard tries to bribe him with a bag of gold and promises to bring a young human girl to him. However, the guard is secretly preparing to stab Tian with a knife hidden behind his back. Anticipating this, Tian quickly kills him. After dealing with the guards, Tian hears Loader's voice in the distance. He takes one of the guards' cloaks and leaves the area, determined to confront Loader and Ifraya soon. When Loader and Ifraya arrive, Loader wonders if the guards were killed by goblins who managed to escape. Ifraya guesses that a goblin capable of killing guards must be a mutant. Loader, annoyed, kicks one of the dead guards and scolds them for failing to get rid of the goblin. Ifraya, with a sinister smile, says that catching a mutant goblin would be an interesting challenge. At night, Tian feels a sense of relief as he rests, glad that he's survived. He's determined to face the humans in a way that suits his goblin nature. He plans to use goblin traits like upgrading through mating and devouring to get stronger. His goal is to boost his own abilities and create stronger offspring to expand his influence. Thinking about Loader and Ifraya, he vows to make every man wish for death and every woman suffer under his power. Hearing a noise in the forest, Tian thinks that Loader and his group might still be chasing him. He gets ready to attack first, but soon finds out that the noise is coming from another goblin. To his surprise, this goblin is female and can speak, which is unusual because goblins are usually male. The female goblin begs him not to hurt her, explaining that she just needs to fetch water. Tian, shocked, checks her stats and learns that if a male goblin mates with a female goblin, the male goblin will become a legendary goblin god. Staring at her in disbelief, Tian listens as she explains that she was sent by the chief to get water, and if she fails, she will be beaten to death. She starts crying, and Tian quickly comforts her, not wanting her tears to attract Loader and his group. The female goblin is amazed that Tian can talk and finds his kindness unusual compared to how other goblins treat her harshly. She tells him it's the first time someone has shown her such care and offers to take him to her tribe if he has nowhere else to go. Tian feels relieved when he finds a nearby goblin tribe. Although he's not sure if Loader and his group are still after him, he decides that finding a safe place is the most important thing right now. As he and the female goblin approach the tribe, he remembers that his original plan was to find a way to recruit some followers. When they reach the goblin tribe, the goblins come out with their stone spears and question why Tian is wearing human clothes. They call the female goblin a freak and blame her for bringing Tian to them. Tian steps forward and asks to see their chief. The goblins laugh at him, saying that an outsider can't just see their chief whenever he wants. They decide to capture Tian and take him to the chief. The female goblin steps in and shouts at them not to hurt Tian. Just then, the goblin chief appears and asks why everyone is gathered. Tian looks at the chief's stats and is amazed to see that the chief is a goblin of such high level. The chief asks the female goblin what she is doing with Tian. She is scared and explains that she brought him back because he had nowhere else to go. The chief then orders his goblins to kill Tian and eat him. As the goblins move toward him, Tian pulls out his knife and tries to convince them to stop. He says he can make weapons for them and that his skills could make them stronger. Tian persuades the chief to halt the attack by promising to create simple iron tools if they provide iron ore. He even says he can make weapons better than the one he has now. Tian notices that the chief speaks in full sentences, which makes him realize that higher-level goblins are smarter. He explains that with iron tools, the goblins could defeat monsters or humans they come across. The idea excites the goblins, who start thinking about getting more food and the chance to mate with humans and elves. The chief agrees to give Tian a chance to prove himself. He orders Tian to find iron ore and make iron tools within 3 days, warning that if he fails, both Tian and the female goblin will be killed. Relieved, Tian hugs the female goblin, recognizing that the chief is ruthless and willing to kill even his own kind. Knowing he can't take on the chief directly with his current strength, Tian plans to use the time given to create some iron tools, hoping to become stronger and buy himself more time. The female goblin, tired from walking all day with the other goblins, asks them to wait for her. Instead of stopping, they threaten to beat her if she doesn't find any iron ore. They start hitting her, intending to beat her to death. She begs them to stop, but they keep attacking. Tian arrives just in time and uses a stone to strike one of the goblins. He tells the others that he brought them along to help find iron ore, not to fight. He warns them that if they want to stay alive, they need to find at least one piece of ore in the valley ahead. He waves his knife, threatening that if they don't find the ore, they will all die. Frightened by the threat and the thought of the chief's anger, the goblins hurry off to search for iron ore, hoping to avoid Tian's wrath and the chief's punishment. Tian realizes that even if he successfully makes the iron tools, It won't be long before the chief decides to kill him. He looks at the female goblin and remembers that her stats suggest mating with her could make him a legendary goblin god. Determined to get stronger, he decides to approach her. He calls her Yu, comforts her, and promises to protect her, provide her with food, and ensure she has a warm place to stay, so she won't be bullied. Yu asks if he's telling the truth, and Tian reassures her that he always keeps his promises. He explains that they need to become stronger to avoid being mistreated, and they mate. After mating, Tian feels a surge of strength. His level increases, and his appearance improves. He believes this newfound strength gives him a better chance of defeating the goblin chief. Holding Yu close, he vows to protect her for life. Just then, a goblin runs toward them, shouting for help and being chased by a demon wolf. Tian notices that the goblin is carrying iron ore. He quickly kills the demon wolf and, radiating a strong aura, demands the iron ore from the goblin. Terrified, the goblin hands it over, and Tian praises the quality of the ore, telling him to find more. He promises to make weapons for them when they return. The goblins watch with wide eyes as Tian uses the iron ore to make weapons. He demonstrates to the chief how the new weapon helped him kill a demon wolf. The other goblins agree, saying that the weapon was really effective. They notice that the iron spear is much better than their old stone spears. Tian then asks if they want even more weapons. The goblins are thrilled and quickly crowd around him, eager to get more. The chief, impressed with Tian's skill, tells him that he needs to make 50 weapons in 2 days if he wants to stay with the tribe. As Tian prepares to leave, the goblins talk about how the chief is getting as tough as the humans. They offer to help him make the extra weapons. On the day the weapons are due, Tian comes back with 50 finished spears. The goblins are very happy with his work and praise him. The chief, pleased that Tian has met the deadline, smiles and announces that they will celebrate his successful joining of the tribe with a big feast of meat. The goblins gather around the campfire to enjoy their meal. Yu brings a piece of meat to Tian, saying it's a special gift from the chief. Tian accepts the meat and starts eating it, but suddenly, he collapses in pain. The chief laughs and mocks Tian, saying he was foolish to think he was clever. The chief accuses Tian of challenging his authority and then grabs Yu. He reveals his plan to make Tian watch as he kills Yu with the knife Tian had made. As the chief raises his hand to strike Yu, Tian quickly jumps up and cuts off the chief's hand. Laughing, Tian reveals that he knew about the chief's plan from the system and was just pretending to be tricked. He then kills the chief in front of the goblins. Turning to the goblins, Tian declares himself their new leader. He promises to lead them in attacks against elves and humans, making sure they will always have plenty of meat to feast on. The goblins cheer and howl in agreement, accepting Tian as their new boss. With Yu beside him, Tian tells the goblins they can now feast on the dead chief. The goblins eagerly rush to eat him. Tian thinks that taking over the goblin tribe is just the beginning of his revenge. His next plan is to recruit the elves to help his tribe create stronger future generations. Meanwhile, a female elf watches from a distance, confused by the sight of the goblins feasting on their dead chief. The female elf, Kasana, who is actually a princess in the elf clan, rushes home to tell her mother about the goblins. When she arrives, the guards try to stop her from entering her mother's room, but she insists that she has urgent news and pushes past them. Kasana bursts into the room and sees her mother with several male elves, which makes her blush. She starts to turn away, but her mother stops her, sensing that the news must be important. Kasana then explains that she has critical information about the goblin tribe in the forest. Her mother dismisses the goblins as weak, filthy creatures that are not worth much attention. She asks what could be so significant about them. Kasana insists that her news is serious. She tells her mother that she discovered a black-haired giant bear in the enchanted forest, which had been chewed to the bone. She explains that there were signs of a fight and goblin footprints all around, suggesting that the goblins were responsible for killing such a powerful beast. Kasana reminds her mother that the black-haired giant bear is one of the fiercest creatures in the forest, and it's unusual for goblins to be able to kill it. She adds that she saw the old chief of the goblin tribe being killed by a young goblin a few days ago and believes this change could be related. Her mother instructs Kasana to take some people to deal with the goblins but advises against killing them all at once. She explains that a potion made from freshly extracted goblin hearts is a great tonic for the male elves. As Kasana is about to leave, her mother comments on how hard she has been working recently. She asks if Kasana would like a male elf as a reward, but Kasana blushes deeply and quickly runs out of the room. She says she will investigate further and report back if she finds anything new. Meanwhile, at the goblin camp, Tian and the goblins are busy using sticks to draw pictures of what the elf clan houses look like. A goblin explains that each stick represents one treehouse and that there are about 30 elf tree houses in the enchanted forest. Tian praises the goblins for their work and promises that when they conquer the elf tribe, he will reward them with 2 elves. He then instructs them to sharpen their iron weapons, which makes the goblins very happy. They cheer and celebrate Tian, showing their excitement. As the goblins head off to prepare for the upcoming battle, Tian calculates that there should be about 60 elves, assuming there are 2 elves per treehouse. He also takes into account the guards at the mines, estimating that there will be around 70 elves in total. Since the chief's death, Tian has been leading the goblins in various activities. They have explored the mines, crafted weapons, and hunted monsters to become stronger. The goblins have eagerly followed Tian's lead, and together they have defeated many monsters, gained experience, and developed several new skills. Tian thinks carefully about the upcoming battle. He knows that each elf has a combat power of around 200. Although his goblin tribe has become stronger and could potentially overpower the elves, he realizes they need to be cautious since they are attacking elf territory. To plan the best strategy, he decides to run a simulation using his system. The system begins the simulation and shows that if Tian leads his goblin army into an attack on the elf tribe, he would be confident of victory. However, the simulation reveals that the elves set up an ambush. The elves trap the goblins and shoot them down, capturing Tian and hanging him in the enchanted forest as a warning to others. The system warns Tian that his plan, which he thought was foolproof, actually fell into someone else's control. Realizing that this outcome means the elves must be closely watching his tribe, Tian understands that there must be hidden observers. Knowing that goblins have sharp hearing and sense of smell, he decides to focus on finding any clues. By concentrating hard, Tian finally spots someone who could be the hidden observer. While Kasana and 2 elves are hurrying back to their elf clan to report the goblins' plan to raid, Kasana is shocked by how quickly things have changed. They need to get back quickly to inform her mother about the threat. As they rush, Tian spots them and starts shooting arrows. The arrows hit all 3 elves, causing them to fall to the ground. Kasana tries to get up but finds she is too weak to move. She starts to wonder if the arrows were poisoned. Tian, along with some goblins, arrives at the scene. He is surprised at how easily he managed to catch them. He instructs the goblins to take all the captured elves back to their camp. Will he hand over Kasana to his raging goblins, or will his human side show and take pity on her? Let's find out in the next part of the amazing manhwa.